Gildy.
Hello there. You look good. Now listen, are you fired up and ready for this election? We are going to really need to amp it up. Hello, Saginaw. Now, we know something in this area. We know that elections matter. Elections have consequences, don't they? I'm from Flint. I know that elections have consequences. But that thought reminds me of another time. Back in 1992, I worked full-time on a campaign. Because back in 92, things were kind of tough. We were struggling in this state. We were struggling across this country. The economy was not working for everyone. We were losing manufacturing jobs. Things were tough. And a lot of folks had lost sort of that essential ingredient in a society. A lot of folks had lost hope. And what ignited me, caused me to join that 1992 campaign, quite literally, was a man from hope. A person who brought to this country this sense of optimism, this belief in ourselves, this notion that if we invest in our people, we can grow an economy that works for everybody. Elections have consequences. Think about what we did in 1992 and what the consequences were. 20 million new jobs in this country because we had the will to invest. We believed in ourselves. In an almost prescient fashion, it was clear then that we are stronger together. So, again, in 2016, we have this choice. And there will be consequences as a result of the choice that we make as a country. A choice between a woman who has devoted her entire life to making the world better for people around her. From the time that she left college, going to work for the Children's Defense Fund, she has been engaged in a fight to make sure that every single American, no matter who they are or where they come from, has a chance to be the absolute best and most productive person and contribute to the creation of an economy that works for everyone. We have that choice in Hillary Rodham Clinton. The other alternative is a person who has worked every single day, his entire adult life, on behalf of Donald J. Trump. A person who wouldn't know the truth if it hit him over the head. But a person who appeals, sadly, in the worst elements. He appeals to people's fear. He appeals to people's worries. He does not instill hope. His entire campaign is to instill fear. Fear of the other. We cannot let that stand. So the choice is really clear. If we want an economy that works for everyone, that gives everybody an opportunity, we've got to roll up our sleeves and elect Hillary Clinton President of the United States. I now get to, beyond the incredible honor you give me to serve in Congress, the honor of introducing this gentleman is something that I take as very special. Because he is that man from hope who set our economy on fire back in the early 1990s, and better than anyone else knows the next person who will be the President of the United States. So let me not waste any more time. I want to bring up for you the 42nd President of the United States of America, President Bill Clinton.
Congressman Dan Kildee, he's really done a great job for you.
And I want to thank the Michigan delegation for fighting hard to make sure that in this new budget, some money goes to Flint to clean up those dirty pipes. I want to thank John Austin, the president of the State Board of Education, who was here. He said he worked in my 1992 campaign. I don't think he was old enough to vote. Dr. Pamela Pugh, a member of the Board of Education, told me the same thing. And State Representative Vanessa Guerra, I'm pretty sure she might not have been in high school when I ran for president. And that's a good thing. I want to begin by just saying a word or two about something that seems a world away. But when I saw Hillary in that debate, I realized that every American who watched it, unless they were just so knotted up with anger and resentment, they could see what a difference there was in policy, in principle, and in preparedness. But if you're mad, it doesn't matter. I'm mad about immigration, I'm mad about trade, I'm mad because my income hasn't gone up in forever and a day. There are lots of people, when you adjust for inflation, who are living on what they were living on when I was president, right? And that's driving that promotes a lot of road rage. You see it all around the world. And our challenge is to make sure that the people who want to divide America back into us and them, instead of what we can do together, don't turn out with greater intensity than we do. And there's a reason that if there's a single country on earth where the voters of hope should triumph over the voters of fear, it should be America. So the first thing I want to say is we need more voters, and voter registration is open until October the 11th. So go register somebody between now and October the 11th. The second thing I'd like to do is just make a simple argument based on what I just did. I was asked by the family of the late president of Israel, Shimon Peres, to come to Israel to his memorial service to talk about what he meant to people who were not Israeli. He was 93 years old. And not long before he died, he did an interview with Charlie Rose, and he said, "What do you want your legacy to be?" You know what he said? "I prefer to think more about tomorrow than yesterday." In other words, to heck with my legacy, what are we going to do now? And that's what we all need to be thinking about. Not long before he died, he went with the Prime Minister of Israel who defeated him in a close race 20 years ago. And he just determined to make a friend out of him, and they kept working together, and they went to a dedication of a new high-tech park in Israel. Shimon Peres, at 93, had been talking to me about that project for 15 years because he wanted people to have a good job. He believed that we could do unlimited things together. You can win a lot of elections on us and them, but you can't get a darn thing done once you get there. So, here's what I want to say about the economy. First of all, the Democrats have a pretty good argument. I made it 4 years ago for President Obama, but we have now had 79 straight months of job growth for the first time in decades. And as a result, finally, this year we had the biggest increase in personal income we've had in a long time, and for the first time since I left office, the biggest gains were in the bottom 80% of the workforce. So, is this a change election? Yes, it is, and it should be. But the issue is, what are we going to do? What kind of change do we need? We need to return to broadly shared prosperity. And you got to have plans to do that. Now, since 1961, since John Kennedy was elected, at the end of President Obama's term, we will have had 28 years of Republicans and 28 years of Democrats. What's the job score? Right now, it's 52 million jobs for the Democrats and 24 for the Republicans. So we can go back to trickle-down economics if we're mad enough. Oh boy, I want to see somebody slap those immigrants around. I want to see somebody badmouth someone else. I want to vote for somebody that never paid taxes so he didn't waste an nickel on it. I'm so mad. Look, I'm not minimizing the mad, but this election depends on the scales that we all wake up with every day. You know, every day, don't we? We wake up with scales inside. We feel a little better, we feel a little worse. We feel a little more hopeful, we feel a little more worried. So, do we want anger or answers?
Answers.
Do we want resentment or empowerment?
Empowerment.
And do we want to reach the world with walls or bridges?
Bridges.
That's it. Look at where we are. Here's how this will affect you, your family, your community, your life. For all of our problems, we're outperforming any other big, older economy in the world. None of these other countries have had 79 months of constant job growth. So for all of our disappointments, you've got to compare us to the competition in the world economy. President Obama, 10 years from now, people look back and say, it's amazing. They did everything in Congress they could not to cooperate with him, and he still produced good results. This is more important. We are the best positioned country in the world for the future. Why? First, we have the youngest, most diverse workforce in the world. Having lost it, I can tell you, youth matters. It matters. It's a big deal. Second, we have the best system of education and training in the world. We just got to make college affordable, the debt repayable, and we have to redignify skills training and reward people who invest in people who don't need it. Thirdly, we have the best science and technology base in the world, and that's generating a world of jobs. And we should be doing more. Fourthly, we rank first or second in the world in the ability to generate electricity from the sun, the wind, and other clean resources, which will make, this is unbelievable, but power will be cheap as dirt within 10 years. And materials and transportation will have more to do with manufacturing costs than labor. So we can get any kind of manufacturing job in the world back to America if we really work on it because of our advantages. Nobody can claim these advantages but us. And shame on us if we don't take advantage of it.
That's right.
But you got to get the answers, not the anger. You got to empower everybody to be part of this economy,
That's right.
not just let them go off with their resentments, no matter how legitimate they are.
Amen.
And we can't do us and them. We got to do bridges, not walls. That's as simple. So, the good news is there are clear, achievable, affordable responses to the challenges we face. We need more jobs, higher income, and more upward mobility. I just talked to a fellow that wrote a book about Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War, and he said, with another guy, they're both friends of mine, so I'll make full disclosure, but he said, I didn't think there was anything left to be learned, but I realized that one of the reasons Lincoln fought the Civil War is that in the North, there was no power elite, there was no slave labor, and it was the greatest opportunity that had ever been created in the world up to that time for ordinary people to start out poor and get into the middle class. We've got to do that again. We've got to make a middle class life available to all Americans. So there's only one candidate with a plan to do that.
Kennedy.
Hillary said the first thing we got to do when interest rates are lower than inflation, as they have been all these years, but they won't be forever if we keep growing like this. We got to take advantage to rebuild our roads, our bridges, our ports, our airports, our mass transit. We ought to put up 500 million solar panels in the next 4 years and make them all in America. We ought to do these things, and we can pay for it. I'll say more about that in a minute. The second thing we need to do is to change the banking rules enough to make small business lending easy again for people. That's the number one problem now we've got. This Dodd-Frank law did a good job in trying to rein in Wall Street to keep Wall Street from bankrupting Main Street again. But it didn't need to do enough to make a Main Street economy again. To do that, you've got to have small business lending. 2/3 of all the jobs created in America in the last 20 years have come from small businesses. The third thing we got to do is aggressively develop our manufacturing capacity. Not because we can put everybody to work in manufacturing. It's the most productive part of every economy, which means every year fewer people can produce more stuff. But because every manufacturing job is responsible for 2.5 more jobs in America. That's why we need it, and it's important. And we've got to invest in the science and technology capacity of our universities and their ability to spin off jobs. I'll give you one example from a good ways away. In Florida, they now have the 3rd biggest undergraduate institution in the country behind the University of Michigan and Ohio State. You know what it is? Nobody knows. It's the University of Central Florida. You know why? Because they decided to concentrate on computer simulation. And they got Disney World, the Universal Entertainment Park, Global Entertainment Arts Video Game Division, and NASA and the Defense Department spend $5 billion a year there. So they figured out that's a lot of computer simulation. That is, it's cheaper to teach somebody to drive a tank, fly an airplane, or go up in space in a rocket on a simulator than the real deal. It's also safer. So they have created, listen to this, because of the university research budget, 100 more companies, new companies there. There are more jobs than anybody can shake a stick at. We can do this everywhere in America. So it's pretty straightforward what we need to do. You do all that stuff, you have more jobs, higher income, more upward mobility. If we fix the education problem, which means we need to make college affordable, the debt repayable, community college free, and skills training more available to people who don't need a 4-year degree to get a better job. One of the great untold stories in this election, which has been dominated by press coverage over insults or tax evasion or abuse of family foundations or whatever, that has nothing to do with how your life is going to turn out. This has to do with how your life's going to turn out. The most remarkable thing that happened at the Democratic Convention was that Bernie Sanders and Hillary agreed on a common education and training plan. And here's how it works. And they agreed on how to pay for it. Free tuition at all public universities for everybody, family, with a family income of $125,000 or less. That's 85% of us. Number one. Number two, free tuition at community college for everybody. Number three, debt-free graduation for 100% of us by increasing Pell Grants, work-study funds, and all that. Number four, for people who already have debt, first let everybody refinance. One of the great scandals of American life is the only debt you cannot refinance is a college debt. Nobody can justify it. I met a woman that I've been doing business with for, 12 years. A few months ago, I went in to buy a pair of jeans, and I knew she had a son graduating from one of New York's public schools. I said, "How's your boy doing?" She said, "Great. He's made great grades. He's going to get a good job. Everything's fine." I said, "Does he have any debt?" "Does he?" She said, "Yeah, quite a bit." I said, "What's the interest rate on the debt?" 9%. She said. So then I said, "Do you have a home mortgage?" She said, "Of course." I said, "Did you refinance when the interest rates dropped?" She said, "Sure, I did." I said, "What's your mortgage rate?" She said, "Under 4. Now you tell me how it's fair for a middle-aged person to have a mortgage under 4% and somebody just starting out life, trying to make their way, to have a college debt financed at 9%. If we did that overnight, 20 million Americans would save more than $2,000. You can pay it back even if you owe $200,000 for a medical degree, let's say, no matter what you owe. You can pay it back as a fixed percentage of your income, and no matter how much you owe, you can never be required to pay more than 10% of your after-tax income a month. And if you don't pay it off after 20 years, the rest is forgiven. If you take a public service job, it's forgiven after 10 years. And this is the final thing. If you start a small business, you get 3 years relief from debt repayment while you're building your business. So young people can start businesses. Now, this is what this campaign ought to be about. How's it going to change your life? You agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of old-fashioned. I happen to think the election ought to be about the voters and their future and what they're going to do. The fundamental other problem we have to face, you can see in the Wells Fargo bank scandal, and Mr. Trump's bankruptcies and apparently paying no taxes, and then what happened to Carrier air conditioning in Indiana. So, and if you want a simple sentence, one of the things that's holding back equal opportunity in America is that financing, which we all need. We need a vibrant finance sector. But you cannot let the finance tail wag the economic dog. And when the tail wags the dog will never move in the right direction. The dog will go around in circles, and only the tail will like it. Right? That is what the problem is. So I'll give you an example. So Wells Fargo first was one of the most admired banks in America because they didn't go all in on the subprime mortgage deal and didn't play a major role in the crash. But it turned out they decided to make their money by opening all these anonymous accounts and never telling their customers and overcharging them the fees. So they didn't commit one sin and they didn't commit another. Why? Because they're all being dominated by these rich sellholders who demand a profit in a year and a day, and they pay the chief executives based on that so they can sell their stock whenever they want, and if they hold it a year and a day, they get a lower tax rate. That's what happened. In Mr. Trump's case, his casinos failed, so lots of people got hurt. But he didn't because he continued to live a lifestyle and didn't pay any taxes or nowhere near enough. In the Carrier case, in some ways the worst of all. You remember what happened there was in Indiana. They had a unionized workforce. They laid off 2,100 people. They said they're going to move their products to Mexico. Production, because the labor was cheap. What they didn't say was this. That division, which makes furnaces, not air conditioning, made $2.9 billion last year. and the profit margins were increasing. And the union said, look, this is peanuts. We can save you $65 million a year. We'll just change the work schedules. Let us do that. And they still didn't do it. You know why? Because they were in the grip of the money tail. And the rich shareholders wanted their money back in a hurry and refused to give the president of the company his bonus, even though the company was pulling a lot, unless they got their money back on time. And the only way they thought they could hit it was to break the union. So they threw 2,100 people under the bus. So what does Hillary want to do about that? Stop the tail from wagging the dog. In other words, say, if you leave the country under those circumstances, there should be a tariff on your products coming back. You should have to pay back anything you got from the federal, state, and local government.
Yeah.
And why are we giving this super low tax rate if you hold the stock for a year and a day? She wants to raise the taxes on stock sales in a hurry and lower them for people who hold their stock for 5 years or longer, so these companies can start working for their workers and their customers. Think about it. In the Carrier case, the workers got hosed. In the Wells Fargo case, the customers got hosed. Everybody gets hosed but the money taker. That is what is holding this country back. So, Hillary says, this is really important. I'm not just for raising corporate taxes. I want to lower them if they help America grow. So, lower taxes for companies that share their profits with their employees. Lower taxes for companies that keep training their workers so they become more productive and more valuable to the company and more able to get higher wages. And lower taxes if they invest in places that have been left out and left behind, from poor neighborhoods in Detroit and Flint to coal country to Indian country. You want to make lower taxes, put your money where America needs a job.